And then I just couldn't compute, what the stories of what were happening. I just couldn't get it that such a thing would happen in Ireland. But definitely to run my own course as well and use the timetable and the concepts that I developed in order to get onto that certified list.
Hello and welcome to the Permaculture Vine podcast, where we talk about permaculture careers, education and business. I'm your host Cormac Harkin, and today we have Paul Lynch on the show. Welcome, Paul. Do you want to just give us a quick introduction there, please?
Great. Yeah, thanks for inviting me on. I think we connected after I talked on the UK Permaculture Association. Back in the springtime, there was an online gathering. Did a talk about permaculture in the future, and a few people reached out, yourself and Tony from the Permaculture magazine. Tony, if you're listening, I get back to you big time. So it's been about 6 months on, and I thought I put you off at the time. I was really busy and thought, man, what am I trying to do? And I want to get more into the permaculture community, more into teaching, do a bit less maybe private design work. And so here we are. I don't know, where do you want to start? How I discovered permaculture?
That's all good. So first question, as always, is where did you hear about permaculture the first time, and how did you just get started?
Probably like a lot of people, it's hard to say exactly when I first heard permaculture, the word. It was probably there, maybe without being explained fully. And I remember I was going woofing when I was in my early 20s, and I was going to Spain, and already then I knew enough to know to look for permaculture farms, not just organic farms. So that's my early 20s. And I remember on one of those, I was in the south of Spain for a month on a farm, and I remember reading my first permaculture book in Spanish. I think it was Permaculture 1 or Permaculture 2 by Bill Mollison, and I was like, okay, this is it. This is really it. And from in and around then, that's about 20 years ago, I was pretty much, I wouldn't say focused, but I knew I wanted to do a permaculture design service at some stage. So I'd already done an engineering degree. So my background's in mechanical engineering, and I've worked in biomedical device design. So like, I'm a designer at heart. I've been designing pretty much since I could hold a Lego block. And I always wanted, even before I knew what permaculture was, I wanted some way to combine my interest in the natural world with design. And that's even before I knew what permaculture was. And then obviously I discovered permaculture, and I did my first course, my first PDC with Aranya back in 2010 in Devon. So big shout out to Aranya and all the crew from then. And I think it was only on the course that I realized that this isn't just a way to be eco. This is a design system, a step-by-step process where you can go through this process and probably end up at a good result. And that was a really revelation for me, because I'd always been dabbling in stuff in the garden, building stuff. Like I said, I'm always designing stuff. It's fine when it's Lego because you can take it apart, but when it's something long-standing, something permanent, as a teenager, I remember building stuff and thinking afterwards I could have done that a lot better. And being a bit of a perfectionist, I kind of stopped doing that until I discovered permaculture, and I discovered that, whoa, there's probably a way to come to a pretty good result first go. So when did I actually first discover it? I suppose those are the key moments, those are the key moments that I remember, that farm in Spain, and finally doing my first course in Devon.
Great stuff. Another engineer in permaculture. There's a lot of us. It's amazing how many.
But I'm not surprised, because you're dealing with, for the design aspect anyway, you're dealing with its design, albeit with the natural world. So yeah, I'm not surprised at all at that.
So you said you were woofing. So take it you were traveling around different places, got your PDC. Did you start then gardening, or?
No, I started gardening when I was a teenager. I was growing.
Right, so you were already gardening.
Yeah. When I was like 14, I was already into it. And then my first PDC was delayed quite a while, because I was traveling quite a bit in my early 20s. I lived in France for about a year overall between my work experience placement down in Toulouse. Again, big shout out to Toulouse posse. But this has gone back over 20 years. And then the following summer, I worked on a campsite down in France, and Then about a year later, I was in Spain quite a lot. I was in Germany quite a lot at the time as well. So I was doing all that. Partly, some of it, was doing woofing. That was in Spain. That was only a small part of it, though. And then when I came back to Ireland in and about, when was it? 2006, 2007. And I got involved in an environmental campaign. We can talk about it later now if you want. And that was amazing on so many levels, on so many permaculture levels, actually. And at the time, I was thinking about coming away and maybe doing a PDC or doing the course down in Kinsale, actually. And finally, I didn't. But in 2010, I did. I had away for 2 weeks, and I did a course in Devon with Aranya. That was back in 2010. But I was in the midst of a big environmental campaign at the time.
Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. It was a Shell to Sea. Yeah. It's so big you can't get around it. It was the Shell to Sea campaign up in Mayo. So that was a very long-lived social, environmental, and economic justice campaign running from like early 2000s up to 2015 or so, maybe even before early 2000s for some of the locals. And I was involved between, I'd say 2007, I went up first, and 2015 might have been my last act up there, but pretty deeply involved for about 5 years, about 2008, 2013. Can I tell you about the protest? I don't know, it's the usual story, I guess. Big oil, big government, and just trying to get their way, and without much of a thought for the local community and environment. That was my perspective at the time, and pretty much still is. It's amazing. Even a lot of people in Ireland have a vague memory of it, but there was a bit of a media blackout on the campaign for the kind of last half of it, more or less. So there's people abroad knew more about what was going on than people in Ireland. I even got a postcard from a friend. He was traveling in India, and he'd seen the protests on the news in India, but there was not much being said about it in Ireland. So I don't know where to go with that. It's such a huge topic, big part of my life. But I suppose I learned an awful lot there. You can say that for sure, especially about community power and cooperation. And it was, I suppose, the best and the worst in a lot of ways. And the amazing thing about it actually is that I think we experienced like pretty deep permaculture there as well in terms of proactive environmentalism. I think often the environmental movement is put in maybe two valleys of proactive things you can do, like growing your veg, using less materials, whatever, and the reactive camp as such, which kind of stops bad things that don't want to happen. But really, the amazing thing up there is that we really had both going on for quite a period, where we were off-grid, growing our own veg, super low impact, but also part of a reactive campaign trying to stop a project that we didn't agree with. So yeah, that was amazing having experienced that. And for a lot of us, it was like one of the most amazing times in our lives. And like ultimately, it was very successful in that we put the project back about 12 years altogether. As a big collective, you're talking about thousands of people who came up there to that protest over the years. So it was very successful in that regard. Ultimately, they built it. Ultimately, different to how they wanted to, but they ultimately built it. So I suppose we all had a bit of pain about losing the campaign, but also about losing that that model of sustainability that we had. Super low impact, really, really high proactive environmentalism, and also doing something, I guess, a bit altruistic that we believed in together. So yeah, it was a bit of a sense of loss after that, but then after a few years, I was just delighted to have experienced it. And I'm delighted to be doing professional permaculture design. It's a whole different ball game. It's a lot easier actually, and happy to have experienced that, we'll say.
So you have to move to the proactive realm of things.
I have. I'd still get involved in it to a smaller degree in environmental campaigns. I've had a lot more success actually since that campaign. It's funny, like I think almost every other campaign I got involved in, we've been successful in. But that was the big one. Yeah, that was the big one. And I think it was more or less an open university for training a whole generation of Irish and international environmentalists. So the reach of that campaign just goes on and on and on. I would say it would have informed a lot the anti-fracking movement in Ireland and then around the border counties. And you could probably name any other environmental campaigns in Ireland since then that has some impact from it, and from some of the same people being involved or having gone and experienced it. Rose tinted glasses, like, it was tough as well, it was tough as well. And but yeah, good to remember the good parts.
So I can't really pass this without mentioning the Just Stop Oil type of protests.
Okay.
Which I think that is actually probably causing more PR damage to environmental movements.
Yeah, I don't want to be the typical kind of veteran who says the kids don't know how to do it these days, but I guess we were doing what I'd describe as direct action. We were participating in the planning processes as well. It was multi-pronged, but the action side of it was kind of stopping that particular project directly, not so much media stunts, stopping traffic in general. Are they your real enemies? Stopping people going to work? I don't want to judge because I don't really have an insight into that campaign either. All I can kind of say is what we were focused on, which was, that particular project, rather than media.
Yeah, that's just how I put that on there, because I know it, like, because I'm definitely not of the sort of reactive type. I've never went out and protested anything in my life, so I'm more just proactive.
That's exactly how I felt beforehand. I didn't want anything to do with protest beforehand. The last person not naturally go to conflict, didn't want anything to do with it. I would have thought those people should just go and grow some veg. That's what I would have thought before. And then I suppose when something that big happens, I was actually working in Galway at the time, and the protest was just up the road in Mayo in 2005. And it was in my first corporate job as designing medical devices for a big corporation. I was so innocent. And then I just couldn't compute, what the stories of what were happening. I just couldn't get it that such a thing would happen in Ireland. And it took me a good 2 years really to go up there. I went abroad in the meantime. I was still keeping track of it. Eventually I went up there and I saw it from my own eyes, and I was like, wow, okay, this is why people don't want to know about campaigns, because if you actually see what's going on, you kind of have to do something about it. Well, that's what I felt at the time, and I was in a position to do so. So I get it. I didn't want anything to do with campaigns.
Fair play.
Yeah.
Probably needs more
I did
to
it.
go out.
It doesn't. I mean, don't get me wrong. We had great time as well. Like, parts of it were great crack, and I don't think we'd have sustained it for so many years if we didn't have such a great kind of community spirit. But yeah, that was that. Anyway, permaculture design.
Yep, let's get back. So you've done your PDC now with Aranya, and where do you go from there?
That was back in 2010. I took 2 weeks off my campaigning and went to England. Did that April 2010. It was class. Went back to the campaign. Stayed stuck in that for a few more years, and eventually, when that was all coming to an end and the various details of being tidied up, back in and around 2016, or before that, maybe in 15, I decided, okay, what do I do now? And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do my permaculture design service. I always thought I was going to do it, and I thought the campaign just kind of interrupted, my permaculture design career for 8 years. So I decided to set up. I did a start your own business course. Learned about some things that I've not got much kind of natural interest in acumen in, like business and planning and all that. And finally set up about 8 years ago, 2016, permaculture design and orchard care. I did quite a lot of orchard care stuff as well. And part of my thinking was, I'm interested in orchard care, but also it's something that's very simple to communicate. Something I thought that there was loads of people needed help with. And it's something really simple. Put up an ad, orchard care. People want their apples pruned, Put up an ad, permaculture design. Most people won't know what it is, even if they need it, and that's worked out quite well. And often not as often as I thought, actually. I thought quite a lot of the apple pruning customers would become permaculture design customers. A good few of them have, but I thought maybe all of them would, but maybe about a quarter, and vice versa. So they're pretty complementary, and that's pretty much been it for the last 8 years. Been just doing permaculture design and orchard care. and yeah, it's been great. Thanks to all my customers. They're fantastic.
Yeah. So so you started, you did your, basically you stuck an ad. Was that in the local newspaper? This was before
Many
social
ads.
media. That's it. Many ads. Just,
Well,
do you want to
before
tell us about that? I know
before
it might sound boring, like, but
no, it's fine. It definitely wasn't before social media. It was maybe before I got into social media, and I'm
yeah.
still don't really like it. Am I allowed to say that? Yeah, so I was looking for a venue, a place to live, place to practice permaculture design, office, and all that. You know, I hadn't really settled down anywhere since the campaign because I was living up in Mayo. And yeah, I just put out an ad in one of the local papers, put up some ads around the different parts of West Cork I thought might want to live, saying I was looking for a place to rent for about an acre to do environmentally friendly gardening. I didn't say permaculture. Maybe I did. Maybe I did in some of them. And I specified what I wanted and what I needed, you know, like spring water, a bit of space, basic facilities, and it was absolutely amazing. There was 10 different people called me up either from the newspaper ad or from the ads that stuck around the place. And this is in the middle of a housing crisis, which is even worse now probably. And it proved something that I had a hunch on, which is that there's loads of property out there, there's loads of places, but a lot of it may not meet the existing housing standards, but might be suitable for me, you know. And maybe people just don't want the hassle of renting as well. But might be attracted to such an idea as hosting a permaculture demo site. And that's what happened. And I narrowed it down to the kind of the most suitable 3 places and just picked the best one. And I'm still here. Big shout out to Fred Lehay. Thanks, Fred, for agreeing to be my landlord for a few years. And big shout out to Chris, who's my landlord now. And Chris is also an old mate, so he kind of can't get rid of me. Sorry, Chris.
So you're in the same spot 7 years. So
yeah.
What we like to do here as well is try to encourage other people to do it. So you just stuck an ad in the paper, and I just wrote what you wanted. I want an acre. I want somewhere to sleep, I assume. Spring, and then what do you do then when you get on the property? You're renting the property; it's not yours. But then,
yeah,
how does that all work? You just get to build whatever you want.
No, not really. It's tricky because there's loads to navigate there. Definitely, I mean, so much to go for owning your own place. If I had the means, if I'd kept my engineering job, I'd probably been able to afford a place. But the old campaign didn't pay too well, you know. So I just wanted something to work straight away. And the demo site and what I put in a lot. But I put in a lot more for my customers, you know, so my focus has been more so on my customers than here. But at the same time, like, Fred is a great guy, Chris is a great guy. I don't mind if they keep the stuff whenever I go, whenever that happens. I'm not sure. I guess that would work for a certain amount of people. I guess those opportunities are out there. I'm not sure. It's a solution probably for some people. It isn't, I don't think, a solution to the housing crisis. That's got much deeper political problems. But it's been great. Yeah, you need dialogue, obviously, with wherever you're renting from. But I guess the main idea is that they're into the idea. They're into the idea of someone doing something good for the environment, someone maybe with compatible skills. You know, I used to trade orchard pruning for went with Fred a bit. Someone who can fit into their community and improve it somehow. And I think that's been the case overall here. And like, you put up an ad saying I'm looking for a place to rent, that's not going to hit anyone as extremely attractive, you know. So you're narrowing the niche down to 1%, 0.1% maybe of people, but that 0.1% are going to be big time interested, and that was the case.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good. It's a good way of just getting on with it and not waiting or not saving up. You just put yourself out there. This is what I want. And you found it. So then your design services as well. How did you get your first customers? Just through advertisements as well?
Yeah, good question. I'm trying to think back, actually. So I didn't set up my website until 2018, I would say. So that's a good 2 years on. I think my first customer might have been a gentleman called Carell for orchard pruning. So straight away with the orchard pruning into the local papers and around the place, and that kind of took on its own life. I'm trying to remember who was my first permaculture design. I probably did a few kind of freebies, you know. I did a design for here. I did a design for a friend or two. I think early on, maybe Justin speaking, I just said, I was at something, people say, what do you do? I do permaculture design. What's that? It's this thing. And once you get that far, once you get as far as explaining what it is, like everyone wants it.
How is that explanation changed? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, once you say what permaculture is, I do environmental landscaping design for people who want to be more self-sufficient, grow their own food, produce energy. And that's my profession. And people think, oh, I've got a garden. You know, it's not until then that they put it together. And just up until now, it hasn't had a name, or people don't know it exists, you know. But generally, when people find out it exists, well, especially down in West Cork, I think it's probably true for the whole of Ireland, but there is probably a concentration in Cork, I would say, of people who want to grow veg, be more environmentally friendly, be eco. But still, I think it'll still be the case. Like I get inquiries from Dublin, from other parts of the country, probably because how my website ranks quite highly. So I think there's loads of potential out there, and I think I've tapped a lot of the people who know the word permaculture, and they know to search it, and then they'll find me pretty quick, or they'll find Hannah or yourself or whoever. But then there's a whole realm of people who probably need permaculture design even more, who don't even know to search. They might put in garden design or environmental garden design. So that's maybe the next frontier. I kind of didn't really want to. I didn't really want to advertise to them at the start because I didn't want the extra hassle of explaining what permaculture was. But maybe I should do it now.
Well, all the sort of communication I'm receiving is you basically have to get rid of the permaculture.
No, don't get rid of permaculture.
Not get rid of the term, not get rid of it, but say you use it, but you are, like you says, environmentally friendly gardening or self-sufficiency, and then you're using permaculture as a tool, because if you advertise it as permaculture, nobody knows what it is, and that adds an extra barrier to them actually doing it. So you have to give them permaculture without them knowing it's permaculture until you actually tell them.
I think I've heard a lot of people say that and take that similar approach, and definitely, like, I know a good few other like landscapers down here around Cork who are real eco. They've done permaculture design courses, and then they also might struggle then, though, you know, with what they're actually giving. They want to give them permaculture, but the person wants maybe something not so involved. You know, they might just want a garden that looks neat and that's easy to maintain. Yes, permaculture is easy to maintain, but I think anything that involves a crop is going to be less so. You know, the easiest thing of all is put your robot lawnmower out in the lawn. You know, that's easy, but it's not permaculture, or is it? So yeah, there's two ways of looking at it. I've done it.
Depends how short. It depends how short they're cutting the grass.
Yeah.
No, up here they cut it within a centimeter of its life. And
Okay.
I was just chatting about yesterday about we have a thing up here. I don't know if you have it, called the final cut. So it's like it's in everybody's head now. Everybody now starts getting into September and thinking about when they're doing their final cut. And it's a big deal, and it's like people will come to me, I got the final cut done. And then what they do is before when the grass stops growing, they cut it within the shortest setting, and then they're happy for the winter. And then come the summer, they're tearing their hair out because their grass is full of moss because it's been able to grow because there's no grass. And I'd be like, no, leave your grass as long as possible. Over the winter, which was I do, and I don't have moss. So there's that.
Okay. So these are the customers we need to advertise towards, people who want their grass looking good and sneak in permaculture somehow.
Yeah, I don't know. It's changing that expectation. It's just that's an example of that's what people do and have done and are quite proud of their final cut, but then they're giving themselves work. It's like how do you educate them people? So I think there is a big education piece around it, because when I say permaculture, people look at me and say, "What's that?" And then I have to basically say it's edible garden design. This is the best I've come up with. And then they go, all right. But then it's a lot more than that. It's about all your systems and how they work together. So I still haven't come up with my sales pitch, but it's on the list for the winter.
Okay, I'll officially allow you to plagiarize my website if you like, because I haven't done that. I've gone to the people who heard the term, and I've done okay, I've had way less. I haven't had to explain myself to people. They know what permaculture design is. They know they haven't spent loads of time studying it or practicing it, and they're like, they want the design, So
Yeah,
that's worked great. But I'm up for doing more about saying what it is now as well, because it's limited. It's still limited.
yeah. It's, I suppose it's what works for people, but I suppose at the end of the day, it's about getting people's properties, utilizing permaculture techniques, and whatever way we can do that,
Yeah,
it can only be a good thing.
totally. Yeah, and there's plenty. I don't know how many people I've worked for. I tried to count there earlier in the year, and I think I've consulted on definitely over 80 different projects, just permaculture projects, and
Wow.
maybe 90% of those are in Cork. So I get a different filter, because I not only deal with, but mostly deal with people who want permaculture, know what it is, and are super eco. And I'm like, Jesus, environmentalism, permaculture is taking off in Cork. Now I know I'm only seeing 1% of people, but even if those people do that, then great. We've got examples then of what it could be like, because it's not up to me to tell people what they should think, or don't really want to be saying permaculture is the way, but I definitely want to serve the people who want that.
And what was your biggest challenge when you started sort of getting them first few customers, growing the business? Any particular challenges stand out?
Man, how long is this podcast? Loads, because I'd say by nature, I'm a designer by nature. The business stuff, I never studied business. I still don't have much interest in business. I just do it as a way, because it's the way I can do permaculture design. So pricing structures, turning something that I'm so passionate about into something you can measure. It's tricky, because when I'd get in a project, I'd be like all in. I'd wake up at night and then run to the drawings, and update something. And like, it's difficult to quantify that. I don't think you can really, and you have to stay passionate. And on the other side, then there's the other flick side of it, is that when you do start monetizing something you're passionate about, it can change the relationship you have, and it's tricky. And you could say, well, I'm not doing this unless I'm getting paid, and you could turn off a source of passion then. And I think a lot of people can relate to that when they turn their passion into their job. There's a risk it can ruin it, I haven't totally ruined it, thankfully, but it's part of the reason that I'm a lot more interested in teaching, because those projects, those 80 different whatever projects I consulted on, to some degree, some of them were just like half a day, some of them were days, some of them were like full on design and implement a lot of it. They're brilliant, but there's a limit, and the limit is how far have the customer gone into permaculture themselves. Are they able to carry on that vision? Are they willing to evolve with it, do the maintenance, the tweaking? Are they always going to be reliant on me? There's no way I can have 80 projects in my mind, and that's also a limit, I think, for me as a designer, definitely. Like, there's only so many projects can stay there, which is also why I'm making more of a move to do more teaching. The more people who can do the design and live with it, the better, because like, one design can be a whole lifetime for someone to mind and look after. Never mind 80 or however many I've done on. So yeah, I'm going for a big move towards teaching for the last year or so. And yeah.
So when you say teaching, do you offer courses at the minute? Do you
Yeah,
offer workshops?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I always do summer and winter pruning workshops here in my garden. And that's great, because that's something I've done. I don't know. There's been literally hundreds of orchard customers, and I've gone back to them a lot, and that's over 8 years. So I can really teach something about orchard care. So every winter, every summer. Will I do another summer pruning one? I don't think I will do another one this summer, but definitely in the winter I do. And then I do general day introduction to permaculture, well, hot compost making and introduction to permaculture. And I think something like compost is brilliant because people can really get stuck in physically, that you can explain the principles of permaculture through the context of something real and touchable. And the phenomenon of the heat of hot compost is like a total revelation for anyone who hasn't seen it first. So that's what I've done mostly so far: hot compost and permaculture garden tour and the pruning. But I am organizing introduction to permaculture courses, which are certified by the UK Permaculture Design Association. Big shout out to the Permaculture Design Association. And I'm working towards organizing my first permaculture design course, the 2-week course that most people have done. I've done 2 of them. I've taught on 2 as well. So thanks, Hannah. Thanks, Susie, for inviting me to teach on your courses on the design day. That was absolutely brilliant. And message to anyone out there, Jeff, if you're listening, whoever's organizing loads of courses, if you want qualified people to come and teach in your course, give me a shout. Would love to come and guest tutor on more permaculture design courses. So yeah, a bit late this year, probably won't get anyone done this year. You have to kind of, it's 2 weeks is a long commitment for a lot of people, so they got to plan out. So it's next year I'll run my first one. But also looking for a bigger venue, especially somewhere in Cork, somewhere better parking, better facilities. My place probably couldn't really host 12 people for 2 weeks, you know. So those are the big moves.
Excellent. So you're looking to guest teach on other people's courses as well as you're developing your own?
Definitely. Yeah, I don't have any animals here at the moment. I can travel pretty free. Any invites to teach on courses, I can award the UK Permaculture Certified Permaculture Design Cert. So I got onto the certified registers list this year, and that's been a long-standing kind of continual professional development goal for me, is to be able to qualify to teach that. And I think there's only a handful in Ireland who can award that at the moment. So anyone out there organizing a course, give me a shout. But definitely to run my own course as well and use the timetable and the concepts that I developed in order to get onto that certified list.
Building a 72-hour course yourself, quite the challenge.
Yeah, I am. Exactly, that's why it took so long.
And delivering.
Delivering, I think delivering would be easier once you know what you're doing, you know. But yeah, it was tricky. I thought I just rattled through it, and I thought it was just a bit of a box ticking exercise, you know. I'll write my course plan, but when I got down to it, I realized, wow, I'm gonna have to put a lot of thought in here. Now, it was useful being able to see some sample courses from other people who've qualified. I can't remember the exact route I got to it, but on the UK Permaculture Association site, there was definitely access to some example timetables, maybe from a few years ago. But when I was looking at them, I kind of started saying, okay, I'll do this, but then something clicked in me, and I had to do it my own way, you know, and I had to do it pretty much from scratch and build it as if I was running it, you know, rather than it just being a notional thing. So I set it here in West Cork, because imagining us somewhere very close to here. I was imagining the day trips, the exact places we were going to, the exact people we're getting involved in, and built a real course, you know. And that's part of why I want to really run it too, because I think it's fantastic, basically, and everyone should come and try and do it. So it took a few months really, and I remember I went to the UK gathering over in London last year, in around this time last year, it was August or September. Met some great people, including Nim Robbins in Wales. Big shout out, Nim, thanks a million. And she helped me quite a bit with the thinking around that timetable, because yeah, she runs courses and had already gone through all that. Who I'll be seeing again in Wales. I'll be going to the gathering in Wales at the end of September in Three Pools, so we're really looking forward to that. I'll be doing a slot in permaculture design, a bit of keyline, and whatever else is going on there.
Great. I'm hoping to get there myself if there's any tickets left.
Yeah, cool.
But did you get your ticket for the Irish gathering?
No, I didn't. I should get it. It's really great value. My God, I went on the website after we were talking a few days ago. I went on the website and I couldn't believe it. It's like 20 or 30 euro. So good.
Yeah, I think my whole family got for like 46 euros or something.
Class. Okay.
It was like, it was like, and that's you couldn't even get 2 nights camping anywhere for that price. 2 nights camping will cost you 100 euro to 80 to 100 euro.
Yeah, it's really great. Now I'm aware probably because it's such great value, there probably won't be huge facilities laid on. So like when we go, we probably have to bring, I don't know, stuff to cook with, food, be a bit more self-reliant.
Yeah, it's in the Slieve Audi Centre, so I think there is like a wine bar there and a restaurant. There's facilities there.
Okay, just bring money. Don't pay
But
for the ticket, but bring money to spend.
uh, you're not allowed to cook meat and not allowed to drink.
Oh, what do you
But
think about that?
well, it's like anything that's sort of wee bit of anarchism on me. It's like he says I'm not allowed to cook meat, but he didn't say I'm not allowed to eat meat. And if I want to drink, I'll just go to my tent and have a couple of cans. I think that's more for the inner circle. You can't really. I think it sounds like they want 20 people standing around and somebody throws a steak on the fire. I think that's what the guy says. So yeah, each to their own. Like
Yeah.
if I want a couple of beers, nobody can stop you doing it in your tent, and you just walk away from the main group. Like it's
Cool. I won't
uh,
offer opinions there. I will, however, you're reminding me of something. You're reminding me of a kind of a controversy we had up in our camp in Mayo, our protest camp, because I was pretty much vegetarian camp as well. And I remember the conflict because some of us wanted to be able to cook like locally caught mackerel and crab claws because the fishermen were big in the campaign and they'd drop off a bag of crab claws or mackerel or whatever. So we had to have somebody to cook this, but we weren't allowed to cook it in the big kitchen marquee. So we had crab claw corner. We had a designated area for cooking our stuff, and that worked out pretty well. But see, all these things are fine. Like we have to make compromises with each other when we're doing something big together, because when you're on your own, you can do everything the way you want. But when you're doing something with a big group, compromise of some kind is necessary, which is why it's so dangerous to be involved in a big campaign for 8 years continuously, because you achieve a lot as a group, but you might impact on your personal development, which is kind of why what I've done for the last 8 years since then, kind of struck out on my own, done kind of whatever I want for 8 years, done a permaculture design service. So I've kind of caught up, I think, on that level, but now definitely up for somewhere in the middle, a balance, both personal development and cooperation, collaboration. It's all a balance.
definitely think you can do both at the same time. Because I have my PDC now only 2 or 3 years, although I've been permaculture gardening for a while. Only been designing for a short time, but I'm sort of learning in public here. So I thought, right, I want to start a business. I'll start a podcast about it and ask and chat people about it. And it's like, well, a function stack that. It's like, and then that's built a good network, good opportunities. And then I can learn off other people.
It's totally brilliant, and it's kind of a good piece of the jigsaw of what I've been looking for the last few years. Like I set up my business, struck out my own, did my own thing, very satisfied with that. But I've been looking for the last few years to touch back in base with people, to connect, to build a bit of a network. And that's probably part of why I went across last year to the gathering. I'll go to the gathering this year in Ireland, and I'll go to Wales again. So I think it's fantastic because a lot of us, I would say, people who are into kind of self-sufficiency can stay a bit self-contained sometimes. And that's, I've kind of done that, and up for getting out there, teaching, collaborating.
Yeah, it's definitely a good way of doing it. So permaculture and politics.
Oh man.
This last we've done our core 40 odd minutes. Uh,
Have we? Man, it feels like just 10 minutes. It's been so much fun. Feels like 10 minutes.
uh,
Um, it always comes up. It always comes up. There's quite an ill-defined relationship, I think, between permaculture and politics. And I would say in the movement, definitely in the UK, maybe in Ireland. I'm actually not that well connected in, apart from my customers, into the other like teachers, the other practitioners in Ireland. But a lot of people want to make permaculture more radical, make it more political, make it more vegan, more whatever. And I've been kind of deep in a political movement and in environmental movement, and I people are kind of surprised when they find out I more or less disagree with it. You know, I think politics works at it's a different plane to permaculture. Now I know like Bill, for better or worse, and David like put in ethics into permaculture into their thingy, and that blurs the line somewhat. It makes it a bit of a belief system as well as just a practical tool. I treat it more as the practical tool, permaculture. I treat it as this is like an amazing design system for sustainability. You know, you can say it's like regenerative agriculture might have built on it a bit. Permaculture is built on keyline design, an amazing tool, and but it doesn't really affect or decide who controls the resources to manage. You know, it's a resource management tool, not something that goes to the level of deciding who gets the field, who gets the land. You know, like wars, campaigns, land agitation. That's the level of stuff that decides who actually gets the resources. I know after the campaign or after the war, people do trading in peacetime, and you buy a farm, and it's always been in my family, but really almost all land's been fought over at some stage. Like, I'm not trying to denigrate permaculture. I think it's amazing, and it's so amazing that a lot of people, I think, mistake permaculture for the be all and end all, and they see this gap. Why isn't it political? And they want to make it political, but actually, like, politics is just another level. Now, it doesn't mean that as permaculture practitioners we can't be political. I think great, everyone do their calling, but it's like the great strength and the great weakness of permaculture. It's the same thing. It's that it's apolitical. You know, it'll never be this amazing campaign that people give their heart and soul into. Maybe it is for some people, and but at the moment, I think that's what we need. We need something a bit apolitical, because like the world has gone so polarized into different camps that you have to eat meat or not eat meat or whatever, you know. Believe in climate change, don't believe in climate change. I think on a permaculture design course, there's going to be people who attend that are going to be interested in the environment, interested in a lot of things, but hopefully they don't have exactly the same beliefs in everything, you know. Like, the beauty, I think, of the permaculture courses before is that you're going to meet people with different ideas and different, you know, ways of looking at things, some of which will overlap, of course. You're on a permaculture design course, but like, it'd be awful if we all thought exactly the same thing in every subject, I think. That's a bit of a ramble, and I'm not sure where
no,
where I went to. Yeah.
it makes perfect sense. My
Okay.
experience of it, because I've been designing for a US company, I
Yeah.
see a lot who would be defined as conservative.
Sure.
And then the UK permaculture is more socialist, just in general by the practitioner. But to me, it doesn't belong to anybody. You can't co-opt it and say it's a left thing, it's a right thing, it's a tool. So regardless of your politics or your point of view, everybody can go out in the backyard and not spray chemicals. And
Yeah.
then
Exactly.
it
Exactly.
doesn't. And regardless of your political aspirations or how you want the world to be, the world isn't that way. And depending on where you are, the world's different. So it's a tool. And
Mm.
I have been sort of learning more about social permaculture, and that's basically just what we're doing now, as far as I'm concerned. We're reaching out. And then that's apolitical as well. But then there's people as well want to co-opt that as a socialist thing, even though it's social permaculture. You can be not socialist and still practice social permaculture. But it's all these. Then you get down to sociocracy, which sort of tackles what you were trying to say, the governance. And some of the groups that I'm in, they like to talk about governance models And to me, it's slightly irrelevant because you're not governed. You're governed. So that's the reality of the world. I can choose how I like. I'd love to know everybody to have a fair share and fair say, but that's just not the way the world is. And for that to happen, it'll take a massive upheaval. So I tend to just go back to nuts and bolts of it. How do I create my own soil? How do I live more sustainably? And I tend to ignore the politics, although I do enjoy the political conversations or the seeing that either side. It's, to me, it's quite amusing.
Yeah, and that's like each to their own way. Now, like, I hope Ben doesn't get me wrong. I think great if people want to get into politics, get into campaigns. I got into campaigns big time. I'm still involved in campaigns. But I'm not saying that permaculture needs to adhere to those political beliefs. Like, imagine if I tried to make all my customers adhere to my my political beliefs or my other beliefs before. Like, they don't need to come on that journey. You know, if they want permaculture design in their garden, that's enough of a trip. You know, and like, I hope everyone keeps their beliefs, whatever they are. You know, but that we can meet together in the permaculture gathering on permaculture courses. Like, that's the real strength for me at the moment with permaculture, isn't that it isn't political. It's a strength that it's not political, I think.
Yeah, and where people are polarized, it should be a place, a shared space, people come together.
Totally, because there's so few of those places now, you know.
I would say there's none.
Yeah, within
the
you're right, probably right. Within the environmental movement, you're probably right. Yeah, there's very few. Yeah.
And even in the what I'm thinking, people there is censorship because what people will say in private, they won't put online now because there's that fear of getting put in one camp. If you even ask the question, so if you even ask to be educated, your question of something that you're not sure of can be construed as a certain view, and that's you, you're done, and then they're doxing you and they're calling your employer. That's crazy. So unless you're self-employed and you're no boss and you know the answer to, you basically have to keep. You're not allowed to. That exploration can't be there anymore.
Well, I'm self-employed, but I still feel that pressure, you know, especially the last number of years. But yeah, it must be harder for sure if you're employed in some organization. Well, harder from that perspective. Better from the perspective that you can just focus on your talents, which is kind of not looking to be employed necessarily in a big organization, but I'd love to have those collaborations with people who have natural talents in the areas that I don't, you know, in social media, accounting, marketing, whatever, you know, and maybe permaculture design as well, and let people work to their strength, you know. Like I'm proud of what I've done in setting up the permaculture design business, permaculturedesign.ie for anyone listening in. But like, my natural talent still is designing, you know, not necessarily the marketing stuff. So yeah, collaborations, bring it on.
Yeah. Paul, any final words anything we haven't covered that you want to share?
Oh yeah, to that end, can you share my website link?
Oh, yep. There we go.
I'll just talk while you're doing that. Yeah, cool. So that's my website, permaculturedesign.ie, and I've got a subscribers link at the bottom that you can sign up if you're interested in my blog. I write a blog just on different projects I'm on, my orchard care work, and also put in, that's the first place people can find out about any upcoming courses. And also, when people register there, I'll get a gauge for who's interested in courses and might encourage me to set up more courses. There's that one. Subscribe to that. Invitations to guest teach. I've said that already. Jeff, if you're listening, whoever's running courses, if you want a qualified teacher, give me a shout. And if anyone's out there with a camper van they're not using and they want to do a trade for a top-class permaculture design for their property, give me a shout as well. I'd love to have I had a camper van a few years ago. It was brilliant. Back in the protest days more so, but it'd be really convenient for doing designs that are further away. You know, you can't very well drive back and forth each day. It'd be good for that. It'd be good for the teaching career, and that's about it. So yeah, there it is, permaculturedesign.ie. Give me a shout.
Great stuff. Paul, thank you very much. I'm sure we'll get you on the roundtables as well. We can chat more. It's been great. Guys, that's been the Permaculture Vine podcast and Paul Lynch. And again, this was brought to you by pdcdpro.com.